Hey everybody, Pastor Saeed here. For the first time in 800 years, here in our solar system, we're going to experience a special star-studded moment.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I got a question for you. What's the star?
A star in the sky is a huge ball of burning gas or plasma that looks like a tiny spot to us because they're so far away.
So what is a star? When I think of that question, I think of the scene in The Lion King when Timon and Pumbaa and Simba, they're all laying on the jungle floor looking up at the night sky. They're beginning to ask themselves, what exactly, as Timon says, are those sparkly dots up there? Timon's going to reply back first. He's going to say, they're fireflies. Fireflies that got stuck up in that big bluish black thing. Simba's going to respond with a very heartfelt answer that someone once told me, and that someone being his father, that they were from where the great kings of the past looked down upon us. Pumbaa is going to shrug and give a rather short and interesting response. He's going to say, oh gee, I always thought they were balls of gas burning billions of miles away. It might sound crazy, but in a sense, they're all correct. Throughout human history, stars have been the source of stories and myths that humans have tried to use, like Timon, to make sense out of what we cannot explain. And sometimes those explanations have made sense, and many times those explanations, sure enough, have not made sense. But when we think of how constellations and star maps and things like that, just looking up into the night sky can be gateways of memories to people and experience in the past, we can be like Simba. I think of how God told Abraham in Genesis 22:17 that I will surely bless you and I'll make your descendants as numerous as the stars are in the sky. Well, if you're fortunate to live in a place where you can see beyond sky pollution and light pollution, and if you have a chance, just take a moment and look up into the stars and see what they signify to you. Okay, yes, we've got to give props to Pumbaa. Yes, we know that he gave the technical scientific answer. Yes, they really are great big balls of gas and fire and plasma and energy that are burning millions and billions of miles away. But stars can be so much more to us too. For the first time in 800 years, here in our solar system, we're going to experience a special star-studded moment. Or rather, a convergence of two planets in our solar system, Jupiter and Saturn. They'll be extremely close to each other, cosmically speaking, and they'll be visible in the night sky. This phenomenon is what some astronomers believe formed the Christmas star, or the Star of Bethlehem. This was the star that the wise men, the magi, astronomers from the east, the star that they saw and that they followed to find Christ in Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Jupiter and Saturn have not been this close together since the 13th century, since March 4th, 1226. While referencing the Christian scriptures, records from other civilizations and cultures give credit to a bright star, a wandering star, shining in the sky in the 3rd century AD. This star is going to be best visible in the southwest portion of the night sky about 45 minutes after sunset on Monday, December 21st, just a couple days away. A star sighting of this magnitude won't happen again until the year 2080. So you want to take time to go outside, to pause, to get wrapped up in some warm clothes and blankets, to bring your family and loved ones along next to you, and to reflect upon what you might see in the sky. You might also be able to see things throughout the week, but your best bet is to get out there on Monday evening and to take a look. What do you think of when you think of stars? Because when I think of stars, I think of light. Work with me on this one for a second. The speed of light is the speed limit for which any form of matter or energy can travel through regular space. And it just so happens that the things most known at being able to reach that speed limit are particles of light. In 1887, scientists conducted experiments to measure the speed of light and found it to be about 300 million meters per second, or for the Americans, 671 million miles per hour. Scientists will often say, however, that the speed of light is a bound, it's a limit, it's a speed barrier of which items with zero mass, things like protons and the stuff light is made of, can always travel through, but anything with mass can only approach it, but actually can't cross that barrier. Bear with me, it's going to make sense in a second, and I promise you're going to realize you're in the midst of a message about God in a moment. But the laws of theoretical physics also tell us that as an object approaches the speed of light, several interesting things begin to happen, particularly with respect to the object's mass and time. As the object moves faster and faster, its mass actually begins to increase. If it were actually able to reach the threshold and to hit the speed of light, then the object would actually become infinite in its mass. That's like putting something on a scale and seeing the numbers increasing and increasing and increasing for eternity and never stopping. It's infinite in mass and composition, infinite mass. Time also begins to be experienced differently as the speed of light is approached. From the perspective of being able to observe the object would appear to actually move slower and slower, even though it's moving faster and faster and closer to the speed of light. If we were to actually run an experiment and to take and place the clock in normal space, say right next to me, and then we would put another clock in a vehicle with increasing speed going closer and closer and closer to the speed of light, we would see something interesting begin to happen. Once that vehicle had reached 99% of the speed of light, we would actually see the clock in that vehicle moving about 2 times slower than our clock right here. At 99.5%, just a 0.5% increase, we would actually see the clock moving 10 times as slow. At 99.99%, it'd be moving 224 times as slow. And exponentially slower and slower and slower, it would appear from the outside that the clock was moving, even though the actual vehicle was going faster and faster. And if the vehicle were actually able to reach 100% the speed of light, at that state, the fundamentals of reality and the way the laws of science and reality operate are completely changed. In one sense, the object would appear to be completely still, but in another sense, it would appear to always be there or everywhere, and potentially even always present no matter where we were. The traditional ways we think about reality will be turned on their head. The past and the present and the future are now all equally real and all at the same time. We're dealing with infinite mass. We're dealing with infinite presence, infinite time. We're dealing with a moment in which we are existing in the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. This is the state in which physics also defines as being a place in which energy and mass are interchangeable. It's infinite energy and power. It's infinite mass. It's infinite presence. It's God in this moment. My words can't quite express the fullness of all the everything that happens in this infinitude. But it's from here that we see that our theology, the words and the thoughts that we have with God also bump up against science and theories of relativity and coverage, and my mind and my heart begins to explode about my understanding of God. And it's in this space of infinitude that God chooses to decrease God's infinite mass. God chooses to decrease in God's infinite presence. God chooses to decrease even in God's infinite energy and power, coming through the confines of the universe, coming down to a space that we call the Middle East, coming into a small place called Bethlehem, and choosing to become one of us, to live with us, to walk with us, to love with us, to pray with us, to see with us as we struggle, to become human, and to ultimately give himself as a sacrifice for us so that we might have a chance of being able to spend eternity going back up into the infinite with God. On February 12th, 2001, the near-Earth asteroid rendezvous Shoemaker spacecraft landed on the surface of asteroid number 433. Don't ask me how all the asteroids are numbered, but nonetheless. It had been a 4-year travel and journey to get to the asteroid that last year, the spacecraft had just spent a year just circumventing, surrounding, going back and forth all across the asteroid, taking pictures and doing measurements. And as the last bit of effort to this, the spacecraft actually landed onto the asteroid itself. Think of all the calculations that have to be put in place to make sure that the moment in which that spacecraft leaves Earth's orbit, that it's on the right trajectory to ultimately find its destination in the asteroid. And that took years upon years of planning. Now think about the incredible convergence of planets over the span of time to make certain that Jupiter and Saturn can be aligned at just the right way so that three wise men can come and see something amazing in the birth of a godchild upon earth. Think about what it must have been like to coordinate with shepherds sitting in the fields and letting them see things in the sky all at the same time. Think about the convergence of all these events that God has been making since the beginning of time to ultimately provide humanity a chance of hope in a world that's crazy, they're trying to make sense out of. The world in which Christ was born to was just as crazy. It was a world in which there was military rule. It was a world in which, remember, Herod, upon hearing that there was a child that was born that could potentially be king, set off on a mission to kill toddlers in the nation in which he lived. It was a hard world back then. There was no medicine. When you had a child, there was no guarantee that your life would be taken care of. If you lost a spouse who provided for you, there was no guarantee that you would have sustenance and providence for yourself after the death. It was a hard world. And in the midst of God's amazing interstellar calculations, God provides us signs and witness of hope. God with us in the form of Jesus coming into the world. Maybe that's the message for today as well, that God is just coming and giving us a moment of hope for the world that we are in right now, all as we celebrate the life of a child named Jesus. There's the song, Mary Did You Know? And I think about how that song in many ways encapsulates a whole lot about what I think and what I feel and what goes through my mind during this moment in Christmas. The words say, Mary, did you know that your baby boy would one day walk on water? That your baby boy would save our sons and daughters. Your baby boy has come to make you new. And then there's this beautiful line at the end of the first verse. The child that you delivered will soon deliver you. At the end of the second verse, there's the line that says, did you know that your baby boy has walked where angels trod? When you kiss your little baby, you've kissed the face of God. There's an invocation of hope here. Remembrance that that's what Jesus is doing. In the midst of the chorus, the vamp for the song, there's the blind will see, the deaf will hear, the dead will live again, the lame will leap, the dumb will speak, the praises of the Lamb. Utterances of hope for us in what feels oftentimes like a hopeless world. My prayer is that you just might find a moment of hope and peace and love and joy over the next couple weeks. And if you have to do it by just taking some time out, wrapping yourself in blankets, and looking up in the night sky, know that the great God of the universe, the great God of the infinite who came down in the finite through the form of Jesus Christ, is looking back at you, saying, I love you. Amen. Well, from my family to your family, I wish you the best of Christmases, the most amazing of New Year's, wonderful Kwanzas, and everything in between. May God bless you and keep you. May God hold you. May God smile and shine upon you and grant you peace, blessings, hope, and joy from now and until we meet again. Amen. Merry Christmas.